Hi. So I'm trying this thing where I make YouTube videos, and I don't really know how I feel about it yet, but I figured, why not? You know, why not? We might as well. You may have been able to tell from my constant posting on Goodreads, but I have been reading a lot this year, and I love reading. I love reading a lot because it kind of like, it like refreshes your brain, you know, like you're learning things, you're stepping out of your comfort zone, you're trying books that you never knew existed, let alone that you were interested in. You're reading your backlog, you're reading new releases. There's just like, the world opens up, you know, everything is possible again. You feel like a human being. However, the other thing you run into when you read a lot of books is that a lot of people don't read a lot of books. And this is no fault of theirs. There is no problem. Like, I have friends who love books who just are very busy, and also friends who love books who just don't read what I read. However, that makes it very difficult for me because I'm just yelling into the void. And I feel bad about it. I feel bad texting my friends being like, I'm reading this book, it's insane, you should read it, when I know damn well they won't read it. In conclusion, we've circled all the way back around to where I was in 2013, where I had nobody to talk about books with, and so I went to the internet. This video is not anything. It's not a favorites video, it's not a wrap up, it's not exclusively what I've been reading recently, it's not a book haul, like it's literally, it's nothing and all of those things. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to like sit down and chat. There's a booktuber that I briefly catch. I catch her videos sometimes, and I believe her name is Leonie. I'll link her down below. But she just like, every time I see her on my feed, she's like, I'm just like talking about the books I love, and I'm like, whoa. That's literally what booktube is. You're just talking. In conclusion, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You don't know what the fuck I'm doing. We're just here. I want to talk about books, so buckle up because there's some crazy shit going on. Before I get started, I want to talk about an event that I went to last night. I never go to book events anymore because they're so few and far between. And I've actually met a lot of the authors that like I really care about. And so the author that I met last night is like very high profile. They're big news. They're big news. And I was so anxious. Like, I bought tickets for this a long time ago, it feels like. And I was very excited. But also, like, since they're so high profile, like, it was in and out, you know? Like, you got, like, 1 minute to tell them that they changed your entire outlook on life. And on top of all of that, I, like, went by myself, which is fine. I love going to events by myself. But it's like, when you have somebody else there, they can kind of, like, bounce the energy off, you know? They can, like, take your candid photos, all of that jazz. And I just was shaking like a leaf. The author that I got to go meet last night was, of course, Casey McQuiston, love of my life, best friend. Technically, they're touring for The Pairing, which is a book that I read in March. I read it when I had COVID, and I was so sick. I was just in bed, off of work, feeling like shit. And I was like, you know what? I have an arc of the new Casey book. I will just read it, and it will make everything better. And it did. And it's a fun little time. If you haven't heard about it, it is so crazy chaotic, but it's all about slutty bisexuals. They're very horny. All they're doing is going on a European food tour and having sex. And you know what? That's their right. Casey deserves to write this. I got to see them talk with their friend Sasha Payton Smith, and they just kept talking about how Casey like went away on a vacation to like research for this book. And I realized as I was sitting there that like Casey is quite literally living the dream, my dream. Because, like, don't we all just want to go to Italy for work, to eat, and take notes about the birds and the bird sounds? Like, isn't that exactly what we all want? I think so. So anyway, I got to meet them, and they signed things. It's annoying that we're now in a point where they're so popular that, like, they don't personalize the books you really want personalized, because the book I really wanted personalized was Red, White, and Royal Blue, but you know, it's fine. We can't do everything. But anyway, when I got up there to meet them, I had been like panicking for the last 10 minutes in line, being like, what do I say? How do I tell them I'm obsessed with them? That Red, White, and Royal Blue is probably my favorite book ever, that I just read it for a 12th time. Like, what do I do? And so I'm like shaking up there. And for whatever reason, my stupid ass brain was like, obviously I have to remind them that they followed me on Instagram. And they were so sweet about it when I told them, but I was like, Jesus Christ, stop. I just like completely blacked out. I think I told them that I was really thankful that they wrote about Henry because nobody ever appreciates Henry. They always talk about Alex, and I love Alex, but like, I'm Henry. So anyway, I told them that. I also like blacked out and I told them that my lightning bolt tattoo is for Henry, which like it is in hindsight. I only realized it on the 12th reread of this book, but there's a line that I was like, I'm gonna have to remember the line so I can remind them because they're not gonna remember the line. And so I got up there and I was like, yeah, I've got it kind of for Henry. And there's a line and they were like, oh yeah, like Henry is the place where lightning like hits the ground or whatever. And I was like, you mean you remember your book that you published 5 years ago? That's crazy. As a writer, I was shocked. I was like, wow, you're more impressive than I am. I am pretty sure I came across as just like an insane, crazy, introverted weirdo. But like, it was very, very sweet. And now I don't have to deal with that ever again in my life. Oh my God. Speaking of books that are coming out, that's not what we were talking about, but speaking of books that are coming out, I have been off the internet, on and off the internet all year. I like peek into Instagram once every 3 months for like a day and then I disappear, and sometimes I get on Twitter for 10 seconds and then I leave, and most of my time is spent either on Tumblr or on Substack, and that's great. My brain is having fun. It's wonderful. I would highly recommend it. However, I cannot tell you how much news has just gone over my head because nobody sent it to me. And so a couple weeks ago I was on my Kindle and I was glancing at the Kindle store, trying to figure out what books that were out there, I guess. I don't know. Unclear why I was there, but while I was on there, I just was like, oh, I should see how much the ebooks for the revised versions of the Bone season are because I need to read them. And so while I was on there, I had this insane epiphany moment where I was looking and it was like 5 books and I was like, oh, of course, the 5th book, that one will be coming out soon, eventually, someday. And I looked at it and I was like, there is a title. There's a title, there's a release date, there's a synopsis. And I like quite literally, I don't know if you've seen that meme, that it's like, was anybody gonna tell me that blank happened? Or was I just supposed to find it out from blank? And I quite literally, was anybody gonna tell me that Samantha Shannon announced the 5th Bone season book? Or was I just supposed to figure it out from the Kindle store? Anyway, so after that, I went on to Instagram to find the post, and then I went on Barnes & Noble and I like did a bunch of cross-referencing and like connected all the dots. They announced the 5th Bone season book in March, everybody. And I figured this out last month in July. And none of my friends, multiple of which liked the post on Instagram, did not tell me. They just forgot, I guess. I did, in fact, I've purchased just the first Bone season revised edition. I need to get the other ones, obviously, but they're very expensive. And so I was like, no, like, you can get the first one. You can get the first one, you can look at it for a while, and then like in January, you can go crazy. For those of you who weren't there, the new Bone season is called The Dark Mirror, I believe. And I just stared at the synopsis and I was like, I don't really know what this means, but I do see the word warden and I'm pretty sure they're gonna get reunited. So like, that's all that matters to me. If you haven't read the Bone season, if you don't know what the Bone season is, let me tell you. The Bone season is kind of a dystopian series, except it's not really. It's set in the future, starting in like 2050, 2060, somewhere in there. And it follows our main character, Paige, who is a clairvoyant. And the clairvoyance, it's complicated. It's kind of magical, but it's kind of like dream-like and like psychic and seeing the future sometimes and potentially reading minds. Is that a part of it? I don't remember. It's a very complicated world that I cannot explain to you, especially because there are also like, I don't want to say aliens because that's not the right word, but other worldly beings that are also a part of the story. It sounds insane. If you haven't read it, you should pick it up. But also you might want to wait because it is a 7-book series and the 5th book is coming out in February of 2025. And I've been waiting for the 5th book since January of 2021. And let me just say, the ending of the 4th one broke me. I've reread it once since then, and the second time also broke me. I almost didn't finish the audiobook because I got to the bad part and I was like, I don't know if I can handle this again. Part of the reason why it got a bunch of cover changes. This is not the original cover. In honor of the 10th anniversary of the first book, Sam essentially like revised all of her books. She made significant changes to the first one. I think the second, third, and fourth are like not as significant, but like still relevant. And so like, if you want to get into the series, you have to read the revised version now. And if you've already read the series, you have to read the revised version now. And so it's like, it's just like a big math meme. The thing I'm so interested about in this next installment, number one, we have to resolve the cliffhanger in book 4. But number 2, like the second half of the series is supposed to turn it into kind of like a Pandora's box, retelling, reimagining, something like that. I think it's Pandora's box. It might be a different one, but she has been talking about this like since the early stages of the series, and like it's not apparent yet what that is. And so we're all like, okay, Samantha, please, like when are you going to show your cards? She has so many mysteries and secrets wrapped up that I just like, I love reading 7-book series because they're so unhinged. Like by the time you get to the end, there's just so many webs to be woven and unwoven, and like the characters are fantastic, and also like Paige is kind of demisexual, which is like my shit, and I eat that shit up. I love the Bone season. Like y'all can keep the Priory. I love Priory of the Orange Tree, don't get me wrong. But like I am a Bone season stan first and foremost, and that is because of Paige and Warden, period. Speaking of 7-book series, this one is complete, so you can actually pick this one up. It's not a series, but it is a series. It's one of those weird series where like all of the books are technically standalones, but if you read them out of order, like you're gonna miss information. You're not gonna know kind of who everybody is. So I actually did a very bad thing that I don't regret, but it is a bad thing. I was reading this series last month and I got so into it, so obsessed with it, that I convinced myself I was illegally allowed to spend $200 buying nice editions of the books. And I know how crazy that sounds, and I should not have done it probably, but I actually don't care because it's perfect. The series I am talking about is the Bergman brothers. Look at them. This is just like my best purchase all year, I'd say. If you haven't heard about these, this is the Illumicrate Afterlight exclusive set. And it is spectacular. Like Illumicrate always outdoes themselves. They outdo themselves all the time. But when I saw this one, I saw somebody post this whole set on Tumblr, and I stared at it and I was like, nah, I'm strong. I don't need it. I don't like these books that much. And then I read the 4th book, and here we are. I will demonstrate why these editions are superior. If you haven't seen the original covers for this series, there's 2 different original covers. There's like the self-published covers, which look like this. And then there's the traditionally published like normal covers that look like this. And I'm gonna be so honest with you guys. They're bad. I don't like them. I think the new traditional ones are better than the self-published ones, obviously. But like cartoon romance covers are my villain origin story. And so when I saw these, I was like, okay, like I actually love the art. Like they're super simple. They're very like minimalistic. They're nice. They're really good. And so I would have been sold on just the cover alone. However, they went fucking all out for these. So obviously if you had just seen, when you put them all together, they spell Bergman across the top, which is just like a great little touch. It gets better. So when you take off this beautiful thing, every one of them, just, that's cool. And also the inside flaps have art. The end pages are so fucking beautiful. They're just like a scene from the book of every single couple. And the other thing that's really cool is when you line them all up, they have sprayed edges, and the sprayed edges make the A-frame, which if you've read the series, you know the relevance of the A-frame. I sound like a crazy person, so I'm going to show it to you just so you guys can see, but like That's insane. That's so crazy. I don't understand why they did the spray edges like this though, because the right way to do it, it's backwards. But anywho, they're worth the money. It's an insane amount of money. I don't think I should have done that, but it's a little too late now. And the other thing that's really cool that came with it is this beautiful fan art. I don't know, you guys probably don't know who any of these people are if you haven't read it, but if you have read it, I'm pretty sure this is actually what sold me on it, because it's just such a perfect little snapshot of my favorite little family. If you've never heard of the Bergman brothers, I had heard about them years ago. One of my friends really, really loved it. And then another friend of mine got really into it. And I was like, that's great. Like, I just was not in a romance phase for a while. Didn't care. The covers were off-putting. Like, I just was like, whatever. It's men. I don't give a fuck. And then I had one of those friends say, no, Jenna, like, you're in a romance era right now. You read all this Ali Hazelwood. I need you to read the Bergman brothers. And I was like, fine. I will read the first book. No promises. I'm just going to try it and we'll see what happens. And now here we are with a $200 set of nice hardcover books. The Bergman brothers. How do I explain the Bergman brothers? Like I said, they're standalone. So every single one of them is a different couple, different main characters. They're dual POV, and they essentially were following a set of 7 siblings. And so we're watching all of them fall in love, or in one instance, fix a marriage. And it's delightful. Like, most of them are professional sports players. That would be called an athlete. Most of them are professional athletes. 2 of them are women. And so one of them is an autistic girl who's like in her early 20s. The other one is married and has been married to her husband for like 10 years. I have to explain it as like, it's kind of like Bromance Book Club adjacent. If you like the Bromance Book Club, I like these more than Bromance Book Club. And that's saying something, because the Bros are quite literally like my favorite romance series of all time. Not anymore, but they were. Part of what makes this series so beloved by everybody is that it really touches a lot on disability, specifically neurodivergence. And so we're not gonna look into that too much, but I did feel very seen by some of these books. And I think it just like, it teaches you a lot about disability and accommodations and like family and just like a lot of things. It's just like mind-blowingly good. Every chapter has a song for a playlist. Not that I care that much about playlists. I actually made a playlist that is way too long. It's like 300 songs long for the whole series. It's fine. Is my neurodivergence showing? You didn't ask, but my favorites in the series, the 4th one is my favorite. This is about Axel and Rooney, and it's a marriage of convenience, which is just the best. Kind of like Friends to Lovers too. It's so good. There's autism rep, there's digestive system disability rep. That's not the right phrasing, but you know what I'm talking about. My second favorite probably is Everything for You, which is the 5th one. I don't know what any of the titles are. I just know who they're about. So this is about Oliver and Gavin. And yes, it is Ted Lasso fanfic, but it is the best goddamn Ted Lasso fanfic ever. Honestly, they're all really, really good. I believe the last one just came out this year in like April maybe. And it's about Vigo, and he loves romance books, and it's so good. I highly recommend it. I know other people have been on this bandwagon longer than I have, and so I apologize to all of the people who recommended it to me for years. I just had to go through a lot of shit to get to this point, but now I love them. They're my best friends. I think about them all the time. Just truly some of the best romance books of our generation. Okay, so last month I was in a romance phase. I read like 20 books, and majority of them were romance. I thought I was just always gonna read romance for the rest of my life. I was like, I lost all the brain cells that I had. No more nonfiction. I don't know who that girl is. I've never read anything smart in my life. And so when I started this month, I was nervous that I was just like gonna slump really hard because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to read next. And it's hard when you read 100 books, because if you don't read for 2 days, that could derail your whole setup. Like, everything could go wrong if you don't read every second of the day. I had like maybe 2 days where I was like, I'm never gonna read again. I'm reading Red, White, and Royal Blue for the 12th time, but I'm never gonna read anything else ever again. When I finished it, I was reading a Substack post, and I made a Substack post about this Substack post. So if you want to like have the full circle moment, I have a whole post recommending this book and why I was like so interested in starting it. But I picked up a litfic book, not expecting very much from it. and it just like completely like changed the course of my reading month. And it's called Evenings and Weekends by Oisín? Oisín? Anyway, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Irish. I tried. Oisín McKenna. And this is a new release. It just came out at the end of July, so nobody has read it, but I'm telling you to read it because it's that good. And it's litfic, and it's like Irish-British, so it takes place in London in 2019 during a heat wave. And that alone was enough. I was like, I'm suffering. It's 95 degrees here in Nashville. I want to walk into traffic. And I was like, this person gets it. Like, they're writing about sweat. I'm sweating. Let's read about sweat and be gross together. What I wasn't expecting, though, is that this book, it hit all the notes that I wanted it to hit. And it made me want to read litfic again, which is such an important moment in my life. Evenings and Weekends is about this like collection of people who are all connected. There's this couple that just got pregnant, and then their best friend whose mom just figured out she has cancer, and everybody is kind of related through that. And so it has been pitched as something for fans of Sally Rooney. I haven't read Sally Rooney, so I cannot confirm. I don't necessarily think it's very Sally Rooney, but that's just going based off of watching normal people, so I don't know. And it's kind of Sally Rooney, but I personally think it's way more like Brandon Taylor. So if you like Brandon Taylor, if you like The Late Americans, I would definitely recommend this book. They're different, obviously, but I think a lot of the like writing style feels similar, and it's very queer, and it's very like dark and in your face, while also being like kind of hopeful and realistic. And it's like bittersweet, but also kind of very romantic. I don't know. It like, I read it in like a day because I was so obsessed with it. It's like any good litfic book where the first half you're like, do I hate these characters? Do I love these characters? What's going on? How do I actually feel? And by the last like 25%, you're like, okay, like I don't think I'd be friends with these people, and I kind of hate their guts, but also like they're showing me humanity, and I feel seen and represented, and also I'm crying. And like by the end of the book, you're like, I feel like I went through something, you know? And that's really what litfic is all about. That doesn't tell you anything about the book. Like I said, I have a whole post about it, so I'm not going to talk too much because I've already talked your ear off. But if you like litfic, if you like queer litfic and Brandon Taylor and potentially Richard Curtis movies, it was pitched to me as for fans of Richard Curtis. I don't necessarily think it's fluffy enough to be Richard Curtis in my opinion, but they're in the same family kind of. If you like any of those things, it's a new release. Please pick it up. It's fantastic. It is the reason I'm reading my current read, which is arguably one of the most fucked up books that I think I've ever read. And to the extent that it's like giving me horrible flashbacks to a little life. And I have spent the entire first, I'm about halfway through. The entire first half of this book has just been me questioning what's happening and being confused, and also being a little disturbed, but not knowing what to do with that, and just kind of being like, okay, where is this going, and why am I so invested all of a sudden? And the book that I'm talking about is Henry by Alan Bratton. It's a new release, kind of. I think it came out in April. It's queer and British, and I'm not gonna lie, the reason I picked it up is because it is pitched as a modern retelling of the Henriade, the Shakespeare plays. And I don't know why. I mean, I know why I picked it up, but I don't know why I decided this is a Jenna kind of book. Because like objectively, like, yeah, you should know backstory on me. I'm obsessed with Shakespeare. I don't understand him. I'm not smart enough to like actually like understand him on the first pass through. It takes me about 12 years to understand any of his plays. But I did do some Shakespeare acting when I was in middle school, and one of the plays that we did was Henry IV, Part 1, and I don't remember the plot. I don't remember any part of it. And obviously this is like based on the whole arc of the Henriade and not just like one of them. But like, I'm so pulled in. I'm so obsessed with Shakespeare retellings, especially contemporary ones, and litfic and queer and all of that. It was just like too enticing to not pick up. And I didn't stop to read the description of anything. Not that I think most of the issues in here would be in the description, but like it was the kind of thing where I was like, the cover is cool, I need queer litfic, it's a Shakespeare retelling, like let's fucking go, it's probably gonna be good. And it's not bad. Like the thing about litfic, like I said, is that you spend so much of the book being like, do I like it or do I hate it? And it's not until you get to the end that you're like, you know what? I think I actually did like that. And I kind of feel that way about Shakespeare in general, that like at the beginning you're like, I don't really know what's going on. And I think this is cool, but I'm not really sure. And then by the end you're like, okay, yeah, he's doing something. That's nice. So briefly, let me tell you like the premise of Henry is we're following this family, specifically the eldest boy who is 22 at the beginning of the book. And his father, also named Henry, is like from a wealthy family. I think they're dukes or something like that. And so anyway, old Henry, who I believe is in his mid-40s, that makes me want to cry. But he has his son, Henry, who is nicknamed Hal, who is the main character. And then Hal has like 4 or 5 other siblings who are also kind of a part of it, but not really. And Hal's mother, Henry's wife, died like 15 years ago, I think. And then there's also another Henry, 2 other Henrys, there's a lot of Henrys, there's 2 other Henrys in a different family, Henry Percy, and obviously other Henry Percy, who is the dad, but Henry Percy is like Hal's nemesis that he just like hates. He thinks he is so annoying and so like better than me, like superior, like whatever, and so Hal just like cannot stand him. But Hal is the most insane person because he just literally, all he does all day is like smoke and drink and do cocaine, and he like doesn't really care about anybody else, and he's just kind of like sucking and fucking his way through London, and and that's like the gist of the story. And so at first glance you're like, what is this guy doing? What's happening? Why is he the way that he is? And then you learn some information part of the way through that is very disturbing, and it continues to get disturbing. And at the beginning I was like, I don't know what to do with this. I just feel very confused. And it kind of actually reminds me of watching Shakespeare and reading Shakespeare, because like when I am witnessing Shakespeare, unless it is a play that I know very well, like Midsummer Night's Dream, if I am watching a Shakespeare, I'm always just like, okay, I'm trying so hard to understand what is going on, and I feel like it should be straightforward. I'm thinking too much. However, are you being confusing on purpose? Are you being vague on purpose? Or am I just stupid? And that's what this book feels like. A big old fever dream that I'm like, I feel like the answers are right there, and my brain is not putting the pieces together, and I can't understand, and it's being vague intentionally because you should understand what's going on, but also I don't know what's going on. But like the plot of it is like, I don't know, I'm just sucking and fucking my way through New York. London. He's in London. It's also set in 2014, which like isn't an important detail. I don't know why they put that detail in there, because you could have just thought of it as any old year. But like knowing it is 2014 makes it so much funnier for whatever reason, because it's like, of all the years to pick, you picked 2014 and it is 2024 right now. Like, okay, if you want some of the trigger warnings for this book, this explains like the whole book, but trigger warning, sexual assault, trigger warning, incest, and that is all you need to know right there. You don't even have to read the book to know what I am thinking right now. It's nothing like A Little Life in any sense of the word. There are definitely parallels that you can draw from both of them. It's almost like A Little Life is like you go through something super traumatic and you turn into this sad, kind little man. And Henry is like you go through something really traumatic and you turn into this unhinged, feral, mean, rude little man. That's it. I've solved it. That's it. If you like A Little Life, you may want to try this book. However, you should be warned that it is pretty vulgar, actually. It's pretty grotesque. Like, on the list of gross books that I've read this year, this is probably the most disgusting. Evenings and Weekends has some descriptions that are kind of gross, But like this one is just like straight to the point. There's like way more shitting and vomiting than I would like in any book. So like tread carefully. It's mature. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of sexual content in there. But like we're all adults here probably. And so I was like literally at the Casey event with my Kindle reading about sucking and fucking. And I was like, this is like a lot to be reading in public, but it's fine. I'm going crazy, you guys. I'm losing my fucking mind. I would love to hear what you guys are reading. If you've read any of these books, specifically Henry or Evenings and Weekends, but if you've read any of these books, I would love to talk about them in the comments. If you have recommendations for literally any kind of book that you think would just like be my thing, you know, like anything that can get me obsessed really quickly, that's what we're looking for. I have lost hyperfixation at the moment and I need to focus on something. I'm gonna stop talking now, but thank you for listening, and I hope you guys are having a great day. Bye.